Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in today's webinar about resilient leadership. My name is Liesbeth van der Linden. I'm a leadership coach and owner of GLTD Ltd in Hong Kong. And I'm very grateful for Hubert from the Benelux Chamber of Commerce Pearl River Delta for organizing this webinar. And also grateful for the two leaders who will be my guests today, Joost Derickx of SHV Energy China and Hubert Poels from WATCO Group here in Guangzhou. Now, I hope you enjoy the session and let's get started. Now, leadership in this moment looks quite different than what it did even a few months ago. As China and Hong Kong are slowly moving on after the corona crisis, the entire world looks different now. Most companies have been hit hard by the crisis and it still continues to affect many countries and industries globally. So what is it that we should do now to make sure that we crawl back on our feet and start looking at what is needed to adapt to this new world? So what we'll do is I'll spend some time about speaking about resilient leadership and how we can develop that. And then I'll speak with two leaders who will each share some insights of what has helped them be or become more resilient and how building a resilient organization also will have its effect on the people working in them. Now let's look at resilient leadership. And one definition of resilience is actually the ability to absorb a shock and to recover and bounce back quickly. So what I'd like to share with you are the 4 stages of resilient leadership, which will take us from crisis to resilience. Now, why leadership is so important is because most companies will be faced with drastic changes that may have a huge impact. An impact that is not only affecting your company's strategy and structure and its processes, but mostly it will affect also your people. So what type of leadership is required to support the people through these changes and to make sure your leadership team and your staff are all moving in the same direction? So you take the whole organization with you on your journey to recovery. So stage 1 is the actual moment crisis hits. It's when there are so many things happening at the same time. No one has clarity and it may feel like a real roller coaster ride. Now, the corona crisis in particular has hit people in their personal lives as well as in their professional lives. And at the same time, we have to look at how the crisis is affecting us as an organization. It's making the tough decisions and shifting into survival mode. You may have had to cut your expenses, lay off people, taking pay cuts, cancel certain activities, delay certain projects, and this can all be emotionally wrenching. But this is when your employees need a lot of support as well, because naturally people are not only worried about and fearful about catching the virus, they may also have stress about losing their jobs. And they may be actually so distracted by personal stuff that they got going on that they actually find it very hard to focus on the work at all. So as leaders, the first thing to do is to double down on empathy. Ask how your people are doing, how they and their families are coping with the crisis, how you can help them, and really sincerely create time and space for listening and sharing emotions. Now, I've lived in China and Hong Kong for quite some time, long enough to know that particularly in the Asian culture, people would not easily talk about emotions. But it doesn't mean that they're not struggling and that we should assume that things are okay. So what's important is actually that how you support people in these times is that's the thing that will be remembered later on. Now, at a certain point, people will start to calm down, and that's when they start accepting the new situation. And that's the time that we can create new routines and adjust to the crisis situation. So what can often be helpful is taking people back to the core of the company. So what did we set out to do? Why do we exist? Going back to what's really important to the company core values and what's our philosophy. And this often can help you explain to employees as well that certain immediate measures had to be taken for the good of the people and the good of the company. Now, once people start accepting the new situation, that's when we go into stage 2, realism. We are facing the realities with regard to our finances, with regard to our customers, to suppliers, with regard to our people, whether they're working from home or not. And this is the moment we have to start addressing short-term challenges. Since our reality has changed, we cannot fall back into the way we used to do things. So we have to start getting inventive and creative. Now, being inventive and creative requires a couple of things. Now, first of all, it requires a certain mindset. It's what we call the growth mindset. It's the belief that you cannot control the way you are. It's a belief that you can actually control the way you are, versus having a fixed mindset when you believe you're born a certain way, and you cannot really change it. So this growth mindset is actually this can-do attitude. It's seeing opportunities beyond problems. Like what Tony Robbins once said, when something terrible happens, do you think this is the end, which is the fixed mindset? Or do you see it as a new beginning, which is a growth mindset? And also, creativity is not something that people have and some people don't. Everyone can be creative. And you have to believe in your own creativity in order to find creative solutions to big problems. You must actually first believe that you can find them. And also, it's very important to embrace curiosity, wanting to know things, exploring, investigating, asking questions. So what this means for your people in stage 2, in realism stage, there's a reshuffle in what the priorities are. Because we have short-term goals that may change, and you need to take them along on your creativity journey and get them to share their ideas and let them know you hear them and let them give you feedback. Because in my work as a coach, I often work with leaders and teams to help them in this creativity phase, to help them to become more creative. Because when you involve people in the realism step, in this creativity step of inventiveness, you're actually showing them the ropes of what it means to be agile. And they become more agile, and they build a growth mindset, and they build up resilience. Now, once the short-term measures are implemented, stage 3 follows, which is reimagination. Looking at what's going to be the new normal and to start planning for the longer term. And this can often be a challenge. As it's often a challenge for 2 reasons. First of all, the full scope of the effects caused by the crisis are not visible yet, as many markets may still be in stage 1 or 2. And secondly, you're having to focus on reimagination on top of the current operations, which already have been affected and may not particularly run on automatic pilot yet. So some companies choose to create separate teams or roles within a crisis team, with each a different focus. We'll have the insights team that gathers information, looking at data. And there's a planning team that focuses on the next 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. There's an operations team that keeps focusing on the daily operations. And there's a team which is looking at communication to coordinate all the internal and external communication and make sure everybody knows what's happening, but all stakeholders are informed. So it's looking forward, but at the same time, it's keeping a close eye on current operations and keep motivating people by sharing and celebrating quick wins of the actions that were implemented in stage 1 and 2. Now, the last stage of building resilient leadership is reform. Now, until now, we've primarily been focusing on our own situation. And stage 4 is when we need to get clarity on the impact of the crisis from an industry perspective. What's the impact of government interference and regulations? What measures have other players in our industry taken going through this crisis? So our whole playing field may have shifted, as some clients or competitors or suppliers may not have survived or changed their strategies. So what if social distancing is the new norm, or physical borders will stay in place? How will this change consumer behavior? And can we continue to reach our clients? So at the same time, everyone in your organization by now, in stage 4, will have understood that things will no longer be the same. But always look out for some teams or employees that are still trying to grapple or cope with the new situation. Because people can only take so much when it comes to changes. Because they might still feel a little bit lost and directionless. Now, focus on continued support, showing empathy, clear communication, and staying true to company values, and involving people in the changes that will often help move them forward and will build that resilience and make your progression towards the new beginning quicker and smoother. Now, let's have a look at what resilient leadership means in practice. Now, let's meet Joost Derickx. He's the Chief Operating Officer from SHV Energy in China. Thanks for being here today. Joost has been in China for over 8 years. And before starting with SHV, he has also spent some time in Jiangsu province and in Shanghai. And in SHV, it's a multinational company from Dutch origin. It has about 40 locations in China with over 5,000 employees. And being in operations, Joost is responsible for those locations. Now, SHV delivers gas to restaurants, to kitchens, and also the gas is used in particular production processes. Welcome, Joost. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Liesbeth. Glad to be here. Right.
Now, having spent some time on resilient leadership, in which phase do you think SHV is at this moment?
Yeah, so I think SHV has passed the first two phases.
Yeah.
So we are in phase number 3, thinking about the way out and the way up from here. And we're making plans for the new normal, as you call it.
So the new normal, but if we go back to the first stage for a moment, could you tell me what has the particular impact for SHV has been in the beginning of the crisis?
Yeah, I think it's very obvious for our company where we deliver gas to local communities. We have 5,000 people working for us. 2,000 people are in some kind of delivery involved. So that means as gas is a primary source of energy for most people here in Guangdong, we need to continue to deliver gas. Also during the epidemic situation. So for us in the first phase, it was very important to protect our employees, provide them with high quality masks, provide them with knowledge, provide them with soap and all kinds of hand sanitizer, to at least to make sure that our people are safe and we still can deliver the gas. And I think we did it very well because up to now, none of our 5,000 people in China has been COVID-19 positive tested. So I think we have done quite a great job in the beginning of the crisis.
Right. So it sounds like you had a lot of initiatives taken and put into place at a very quick and at the right time. So the lockdown, has it been affecting you at all, or how have you managed to stay in touch with the employees in the more difficult first phase of the crisis?
So have it affected us as a company? Yes, for sure. I mean, we lost also in this during this lockdown 70% of our volume, but it is mainly industry volume and restaurant volume. One side we were lucky because it was already Chinese New Year, so that is a normal season that it is less busy for our company. But we were very active in the beginning. The day that Wuhan closed, I think we already had 250 body temperature measures already ordered and already delivered to our locations. We already had masks, I think, already in-house. And through the Chinese New Year, we were continuously buying masks from our sister company Derickx in Belgium, and shipped them during Chinese New Year to China. So after Chinese New Year, we were up and running. For management, yes, we were definitely affected because we were also not prepared to work so much from home. Luckily, our people had already laptops and we had already connections to our servers, but it was more a matter of getting used to this strange situation that nobody is in the office.
Yeah, I can imagine. So it is an adjustment, but it sounds like you made the adjustments fairly quickly and were well prepared.
Yeah, so we had the business continuity plans already on in our office, especially also for epidemic situation. We did last year a training for business continuity plans for a different scenario, but at least we were quite prepared as a management team for this.
Yeah, right. So I know that SHV has a particular philosophy. It has core values in place. I think they're integrity, and the other one is loyalty.
Loyalty, yes.
Yeah. So how have these core values played a role in leading people through the crisis, talking to people, communicating all the things that were changing? Has it played a role? And if so, how has it played a role?
I think you need to go even one step further back, Liesbeth. SHV is a family company, and we always say in SHV we act like a family, and that's why also this integrity and loyalty is coming from, and all the employees are feeling like they are in this family, and that family values are helping us to give people some kind of security. We have not fired any person. We have not reduced any salary during this crisis, not in China, but also not in the 25 other countries where we are active in, despite we also have a financial impact.
That's
so
quite incredible.
It is really,
yeah.
So it's and we could give this message already from day one. From day one, it was also from our Netherlands head office, also from our holding company. The message was very clear: safety of our own people first, whatever it takes, whatever business this will cost. It was also clear: no salary cuts, no bonus stops or something like this. Immediately from day one, and it is also visible in like people who were overseas. Not only the expats who were overseas, but also the Chinese employees who were overseas during Chinese New Year. They were not allowed to come back to China during the first wave of the infections, and not even that. Even the company said, "Okay, we pay for the additional expenditures at the locations where you are." Like hotels or flight changes. So this family thinking helps us in communication, helps us to also from here to continue building our company with a quite of loyalty the other way around.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I think if you look at the employees, then that must have kind of calmed them down in the first chaos of everything that's happening, particularly for the people that are abroad, that are away from their family with such a crisis going on. I can imagine it does feel good to feel supported and to feel at least I don't have to worry about my job. At least I don't have to worry about my increased costs being not even near home and having all these expenses abroad. How have you been surprised, or have there been any surprises by responses from employees or in any of the 4 stages basically of the crisis?
So I mean, I've been incredibly impressed by our delivery people. I mean, the way they handle, the way they continue to work, even because even I was afraid. I mean, during this crisis, and they just continue to deliver the gas, which was very impressive. And also, I think we have done also afterwards quite some big thanks to them for continuing. But also, I mean, I get some sweet messages from employees who were stuck overseas and said, I was so happy that at least I didn't need to worry that I need to buy a new airline ticket because my original flight was canceled, and now the airline charged me I don't know a few $1,000, and I don't have the money, and the company already said they will pay. So also this kind of messages were incredibly helpful, and it helps us now by lowering the expectations for like salary increase of this year. It is pretty easy to communicate, okay, salary increase this year is maybe not 5 or 6%, but it's more in the direction of, I don't know, 2 to 3%. And people understand that and accept that.
Yeah. And so trying to keep things organized for people, trying to calm them down, trying to give them the confidence that things will continue it's been an amazing job that you've done. But now things are going to change. So how can you take your people through the things that are going to change? Because we cannot hang on to how it used to be. Things will change in the future. How are you taking people through that change?
The first thing is that luckily in China, people anyway used to change. Yeah, so in China, it helps enormous versus the colleagues in the rest of the world, and especially in Europe. So we're using within SHV always a model that which is from Belgium called 6 batteries of change, and that is really focusing on giving the people the explanation why you want to change, and making this very clear to people. Get them involved, but in the end, it is the company who takes the direction, and it is. We also need to be resilient on this. That we need to move on. Yeah, we cannot stay in the way it was, and we're really using at this time. And we call this the way out and the way up. Is okay. How now to look to our company and what has changed and what can stay in this crisis. If you look to the past, if we took the crisis out of 9/11, where we definitely see that the way of we fly completely changed. So we say also here, okay, this crisis is at least a home base office, the way we're talking now to each other, sitting, I don't know, a few hundred kilometers away from each other. We think that this will remain there. So can we use this kind of technology also in our industry? I mean, the gas delivery definitely need to be physical, but can we do this in the sales process? Can we do this in the back office process? Can we make it more digital and more efficient, and use this opportunity to make our company even stronger in the near future? But you're definitely right. The people need to adapt and need to change as well. So we need to do a lot of explanation and a lot of guidance, motivation, and sometimes a little pressure, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending a lot on people, you have so many personalities, and some people will take on board, I would say, changes more easily than others. And depending on whether they're millennials or maybe some older people in the organization that are, you know, their flexibility and their resilience are different. So some people, naturally, I think you might have to guide a little bit more, and some might take it on a little bit more easily. Now,
yes. So normally we really focus on this 20% or 40%, which is taking the early adapters and taking the bigger majority. Focus on this. The last 20% who anyway doesn't want to change, probably how many energy you put inside, that will probably not work.
Yeah. So definitely the contact-free economy and doing things more online and doing things more from a distance. To your opinion, I hear is one of the elements that will stay. Are there any other elements that you think are part of the new normal that you will have as a company to adjust to? Or is this the
Uh,
main topic for you?
yeah, so our main topic is the digitalization, and the digitalization on two sides. One is what you said, the customer interaction. We were already quite busy with online ordering, and so the call center, the traditional telephone ordering was already reduced by 50% since 3 years. Yeah, maybe we can do a next step there. The delivery was already partly digital. So this is one side. The customer focus on this. Can we improve this even further? And that also changed our business model. Maybe that people doesn't need to call us anymore, but we have some technology in our cylinders, so that we know, oh, the cylinder is almost empty by Liesbeth at home, and we need to schedule an appointment with her, so that instead of she needs to call us. So that is one side. The other side is more our processes. Can we also digitalize and automate our processes and create some more efficiency in that perspective? So that are the two main points for us. And the other thing is the way we work together globally. SHV is a pretty decentral organization, and we didn't do so many global projects. And the most global projects we have done together were not the biggest success. But you see now this crisis also helps us to set up more of these meetings. Helps us because China is it was the early stage of the crisis, also the early one to go out. So we help now Europe. So how to restart your business, and we guide Brazil and the United States in the first stage. So also this way of working within the group has been significantly improved, and we like to keep that one also for other topics non-corona related.
Right. And what I hear back from you again is that kind of family approach there as well. Like, we're not all by ourselves helping and separate from each other, but we're all reaching out to help each other within the organization. Because in China, we are probably a little bit further ahead with coming out of the crisis and what's going to be next, if you compare it to other sides of the world. In the midst of the crisis, lots of stuff is happening, and it sounds like SHV has managed well through the crisis and have already kind of built a good resilience. But there is an economic downturn coming up. There are companies that are not going to make it. Maybe people in your supply chain. It is going to have an impact, which might not be positive. But is there anything from the crisis that you've learned that you can use in the future moving forward?
Of course, we see also there is a risk that maybe there's a second wave. Maybe indeed some suppliers are not going to make it. We always say be prepared for the worst. So we really are preparing ourselves for another crisis. Doesn't matter if this is a health crisis or some other crisis. So be prepared for multiple scenarios. Try to be adaptive, and the most important, try also to be creative with the given circumstances. So be creative. Find new ways of working. Find alternative ways to do your business. That is in some industries easier than in other industries. I absolutely understand. I mean, in our business as LPG, it is not the most easiest way because we are strictly regulated from a safety perspective. But of course, also SHV is looking into what kind of new energy sources we can offer to our clients to come beyond any time horizon of that. LPG would be out of usage.
Okay, so it sounds like SHV does see the silver lining, is moving forward to a stage 4. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Joost, for shining your light on what resilient leadership means within your company. And I want to wish you good luck moving forward, and using the 6 batteries of changed to be successful and remain successful coming out of the crisis in the new normal world. Thank you very much once again, and take good care.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very welcome. Bye-bye. Now, let's meet Hubert Poels, Managing Director at WATCO Group in Guangzhou. Now, Hubert is an absolute China specialist. He's been in China for 23 years. And initially, Hubert has worked for what was still called Campina at the time. But for many years after that, he's been an entrepreneur. And since 2012, he and his partner founded WATCO Group, a specialist engineering company in cooling technology. And WATCO provides engineering and procurement services that allow incredible efficiency improvements in large AC units, large air conditioning units that are used, for instance, in metro stations, in airports, in big data centers, factories, hotels, hospitals, and large institutions like that. Now, thanks very much for being with us today, Hubert. We've just spent some time on the 4 stages of resilient leadership. I'm just curious to know, in which one of the 4 stages would you say your company WATCO is currently?
First of all, Liesbeth, thank you for that spectacular introduction. I never thought of myself like that, but it sounds very, very good. But coming to your question, I would say we would be in stage 3. The stage of reimagination, and that's actually because of several reasons, which I think actually, before explaining that, I might need to tell you a little bit about our business process.
Sure, yeah.
And with projects like we do, basically there are some aspects that need to be kept in mind. And first of all, is a project has a lead time that can go up to 6 months, sometimes even 1 year, sometimes even longer. So from the moment we start talking about new projects until we actually ship goods and go for installations, there's a long delay. And that brings me to the second point that is very important, which is on-site. We need to visit our projects for every installation that we do, installation supervision, installation commissioning. So that is actually one of the things that need to be addressed. Now, in the whole business process, we are looking at how can we do things different, because also traditionally there's a lot of personal contact, which means a lot of traveling, and that would be both inside of China, where actually our main market is, as well outside China. So we need to find different ways of handling that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, internet technologies are at our disposal, and we actually currently discover the usefulness of these discoveries, of these technologies. And also we need to make sure that, and later we will probably get to that, because of a lot of projects being put on hold, and because of the long delay between project start and project execution, we also need to find different ways of keeping our cash flow going.
Yeah.
Because cash flow drying up is going to be killing to the business. So we are working on that, and I would say we are, let's say, getting some successes on it, but it's still in an early stage. Because if you look at the whole crisis, it's actually going on since 2-3 months, which is relatively short.
Yeah. So Hubert, I see that you're already looking forward to what internet can do, the technology of internet can do. You mentioned the cash flow issues that I think a lot of companies are have similar issues with. If we go quickly looking back at stage 1 in February, January, February in Hong Kong, when the crisis, Hong Kong and China actually, when the crisis hit, what was the immediate impact of the coronavirus or the corona crisis on your company?
Immediate impact, of course, after Chinese New Year, we had to stay closed for a couple of weeks. It didn't seem to spill out outside of China, although I was fearing the worst in that respect. But all the messages you got from, and in our case, the Netherlands is the first country you look at, they were rather reassuring that this would not have any impact on the Netherlands, on Europe, on the EU.
Oh, yeah.
I was here during the SARS crisis in 2003, which was similar, but which, of course, and you can think of what social media contributes to the way this crisis develops. But the SARS crisis in 2003, there was some local unrest, slight panic maybe even, but in the end, it didn't impact anything severely. After a few months, everything was back to normal, without serious implications for companies, for peoples. There was no talk about a new normal or anything like that. So when this crisis emerged in February, I didn't know what to expect, and we were just following the rules and hoping for the best, lay low for a couple of weeks, and that was it. And yes, actually, since it hit the European countries, the whole, let's say, the whole outlook on it and the severity of it starts changing.
Absolutely. And in that first initial lockdown phase, because China has been in a lockdown and Guangzhou has been in a lockdown, how did you support your employees? How did you remain in contact with them and kind of support them through that time?
Well, actually, there was not really in the state of mind we were just thinking like, hey, okay, we have a couple of weeks that we just have to stay home. The government regulation or recommendation is like, just keep on paying your salaries. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Once we got back to work, we made sure that essential activities were being carried on from home. Actually, we are in a lucky situation that we built our own project management platform already 10 years ago, which is online. So that made it for everyone very simple, very relatively simple to keep on track, know what their tasks and duties are, know what their deadlines are. And we don't get a huge email traffic, which is confusing and in which communications get lost very easily. So it was easy to manage it from home. Anyone could work from home.
Okay.
We were just paying as usual, and again, we were hoping it was over pretty quickly.
Yeah, so it sounded like you already, given the kind of company and the project focus company that you are, that things were already, people are used to a situation of not having to be in the office to physically work there, and took on that responsibility while they were being at home. So.
Right.
At the moment, if we're now zooming forwards back to where we are right now, you're saying we're about in stage 3, the reimagination phase. How do you balance looking and planning forward? Because that's what we have to start doing now. But how is the new world going to look like? But that's on top of all the day-to-day problems and all the day-to-day issues of maybe clients pulling out, projects being delayed. How do you focus on today while having to make plans for the future already? How do you balance that?
Well, the focus of today is primarily cash flow.
Okay.
And after the lockdown was lifted here in China, actually all the pending projects came to life again. And we have goods prepared, construction projects, because mostly it's new projects, new constructions where we participate in. Construction projects carry on, you get completed, and we are back in the game. We ship our goods, we deliver our services, and then actually the cash flow kept on going. But where new projects are at the beginning of the pipeline and decision-making processes to come to a final decision, to have a kickoff on the execution, where that is delayed, and where new projects coming into the pipeline is delayed, that will be a problem over the next few months. So cash flow is going to be the main concern for us.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, like I mentioned, yeah, we also have to, well, I wouldn't say reinvent ourselves, but we have to do some activities that actually allow us to have a greater chance of new business acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
We do that mainly, we look at geographical expansion. We are now focusing on Southeast Asia. Main market is China. Other markets in Southeast Asia have actually come to a complete standstill and are still right now.
Yeah.
And we are casting our net somewhat wider, and we are now talking with various parties in Europe and South America, and we're talking about new business development. But having said that, I know that takes a long time.
Right.
Another thing that we are doing is we are working in a field where we have become an absolute specialist in our technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually what we wanted to be. Become a specialist, don't become a jack of all trades. But now we are actually also looking at what can we do in assortment expansion. How can we work with complementary items that actually we know are needed on a project? Where can we be of more service? We talk to decision makers that need to buy a certain set of goods. We talk to contractors that need to buy certain sets of materials, so we can expand our offering. And we are also looking at alternative technologies. Even we have a unique technology that addresses a certain problem, but being unique and being new also means that making a sale often is more difficult. If someone's not acquainted, not familiar with your product, with your technology, they might have a reluctance of buying into it. So having other technologies that actually are, in our opinion, inferior to ours, but are more commonly accepted, that would also increase our opportunity to, on the short term, maximize our business and our income stream.
Yeah. So, and it's great to hear that you are already thinking way ahead in terms of geographic expansion, portfolio expansion, using alternative technology, in looking at what the opportunities are, but also knowing that it might take a while before those new ideas and new initiatives will really start to flourish and start to generate additional business for the company. So in that respect, in looking forward and preparing for what's going to happen, what do you see are, or to your opinion, are some of the important elements of what we call the new normal for your organization? What do you think the world will look like? What are some of the elements that you think are here to stay and that we have to, take into account when we're making plans for the future?
Well, everyone is, or not everyone, but in the media, there's a lot of talk about the new normal, but no one really knows what it is yet. I don't know what it is. We talk about social distancing, the 1.5 meter society, like they refer to it in the Netherlands. We talk about travel restrictions, what we see internationally. And those are, let's say, the only tangible elements that I can see right now and we have to deal with. And for that, I already mentioned, we are doing a lot of our business dealings, our meetings, our introductions, presentations of concepts, presentations of plans for new projects. We're doing that online, where in the past that used to be done in person. And we are actually embracing this because it seems that we have kind of overlooked the usefulness of this in the past. and that is something we are working with. And then we have to take this to the next level, and that's with regards to the travel restrictions that are and will be in place for no one knows how long. And that is supervision, site supervision, and installation commissioning. And how can we do that online? Because now you cannot go outside of China. You cannot come, and if you go outside, you cannot come back. I hear stories about people want to travel to the Philippines. They have to get 2 weeks in quarantine arriving in the Philippines. They have to get 2 weeks in quarantine before they're allowed into a specific company. And you would have to get 2 weeks in quarantine if at all you could go back to China. That would mean 6 weeks of quarantine for a job that is 2 or 3 days on site, which is, of course, it's not going to work. But on the other hand, the projects need to go on, and the expertise is required. So we have to find ways to do that, and we will find ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you think, like in the consumer behavior, and I'm really referring to particularly in China with its culture, deeply ingrained of having meals together, of drinking together, of spending time together, for building trust, I suppose, and making the deals, which is normally a longer process. How would you envision that to be happening, or is that still a big question mark as well? How that's going to work out in China?
That's a big question mark, because I personally, I did a lot of traveling in my days, and it's like we can have a great meeting with a team of engineers online, and the meeting might be almost just as useful as it would be in real life, but then having that dinner or spending a couple of hours with them, traveling to a site and chatting in the car, chit-chatting about your personal life. I mean, I think that's where that bond is built. And that's not going to happen. We're not going to set up a meeting with an engineer to talk about your social life, your personal life for a couple of hours. So that's going to be, that's going to be missing. And okay, then you have to build on the relations that you already have. That's one thing. And then you have to trust that, if I can't build that bond, neither will be my competitor be able to do that.
Also true, yeah.
So then it will probably, the whole process will become much more rational. Yeah. And of course, in Europe, it is already much more rational than it is in Asian societies. But maybe that's going to, let's say, bring the Asian develop in a faster current to become rationalized, and in the end, that might be a good thing as well. We don't know.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. Yes. So one final question for you, Hubert. On a positive note, what do you think, if you're looking forward, and leaving the crisis a little bit behind us with all the difficulties and the uncertainties that go with it, where do you see a silver lining for the future?
Well, let me first say that that's very difficult to see. But if I look for some silver lines, it's actually things I already mentioned. It's the fact that we have embraced new technology, and that we see ways to use them, not only for simple things like meetings, but also for the difficult things, which is on-site presence. Another thing which might appear to be a blessing in disguise later is a rationalization of a business process. Because let's be honest, I, as a Dutch guy who speaks a handful of words of Chinese, even after 23 years in China, I will never be able to really have that extensive bonding during a dinner session. So my bonds will always be weaker than the Chinese to Chinese bonds. It will never be that strong. So the fact that that gets rationalized might also be a blessing in disguise. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Hubert. Thank you for giving us your take on the current situation and your views of what you think is going to be the new normal. Definitely, we've heard some examples of resilience and how your company's been able to absorb the shock initially and is now working toward its recovery. I'd like to wish you best of luck with that and take very good care for you and your company and the employees. And thank you again very much for your contribution today, and hope to see you again soon.
You're welcome, Liesbeth. It was all my pleasure.
Thank you.